came up at the 8. Okay, so one thing I will notice, the reflection of the sun hitting this emitter and then it bouncing back, it's producing like a circle around the dot from where the emitter is. So that's annoying because you have a red dot, then you have like a white ring or a bigger dot around it, and then you have the glass. So that's kind of annoying. I don't know. I assume there's some sort of coating they could put on that glass that would fix that. But all right, let me just do this. That's a little bit more stable. I know you're not supposed to close one eye, but that reticle reflection or glass reflection in conjunction with the glass being just slightly, I don't know, weird, it's really hard to get a precise sight picture with this. I'm actually having to close an eye, which you shouldn't have to do with the red dot, but I mean, my group's not terrible. Okay. I was able to stack most of those on top of each other. All of those except for one were good trigger pulls. The rest was just limited by the reticle and that reflection. It blocked my entire target what I was aiming at, so I didn't have a fine aiming point like I would like. All right, welcome back, guys. Today we're going to be doing a quick, well, hopefully a quick follow-up video for this Olight Osight. If you've seen all the videos on the internet, people have been having lots of issues with this. Either one, they've had issues, or two, they've had absolutely no problems whatsoever. So to me, it seems like there's a quality control issue maybe with the first batch of these things that came out. Hopefully Olight gets that resolved. And it seems like they're trying to fix the problems, at least the ones that I brought up that I was aware of. So my biggest complaint with this, because again, if you've seen the videos out there, a lot of these were not holding zero for people. They were actually losing zero wildly, just randomly, just with the ever so slight touches. So that's not normal. My suspicion is that there was something wrong with the detents or the elevation knobs themselves internally. Maybe the springs were weak, I don't know. But that seemed just kind of a weird thing to happen, because all of these cheap optics over here, well, most of which I broke at this point, they all held zero just fine, and a lot of those were under $100, or at least right around the $100 mark, and depending on if they're on sale or not. So coming in at $200 for this thing, I wasn't expecting it to lose zero. And on my example, it did lose zero just a little bit. Again, I think it only moved around 3 inches at 10 yards, something like that, which was not a lot. Normally, if an optic loses zero, it's going to lose zero wildly, because it's just going to go all over the place. So I wasn't a fan of that, obviously, but I contributed it to the same thing I contributed most of these optics, is the slide cut on this Brownell's cut slide, which is a Zev style slide, which means it has the post right here where the screw holes themselves are, and then it uses a thinner screw right there. So the problem that I've had with that in the past is the screw holes in there, or not the screw holes, yeah, the screw holes that are right in here were a little bit oversized, so the optic would wiggle just a little bit before you tighten the screws. And that's not a huge problem as long as your screws are able to hold it down real tight, because again, there's a little bit of slop there from the post. Now, the original screws that they sent, and I have everything out here. So in my hand right here, I have the original screws, and as you can see right here, the threading, I don't know if you can see that or not, the threading on the bottom is completely gone. Also, these screws were too short, so because there was only about maybe 1.5 threads that actually engaged in anything before they stripped out, there wasn't a whole lot of pressure or torque that could be applied to these screws, again, just because they were so short. Now, another one of those screws that are in there, the ones right there at the top right, you can see it has like a little shelf almost underneath the head of the screw. Those are actually different screws that I was able to use to get it to kind of hold zero, but they weren't the best. And again, those were from another optic company. They weren't even designed for that. So the screws being one, a weaker material, and two, being too short to actually tighten, they did not work with this slide. Olight has resolved that. Now, it's not a perfect solution, at least in my mind, but it is a 99% improvement. So I talked to Olight, and they did say that they were going to be utilizing the same screws that HoloSun does. So and if you like Holosun products, you know they usually implement good screws. At least I haven't had any issues with them. Now, I will say I tested these screws pretty thoroughly because they sent me 3 different sets of them that are all the same length and told me try them out, make sure everything works fine, and then let us know your feedback so we know that these are good screws to utilize for it or not. So kudos where kudos is due. Now, on these right here, you can see there is still some shiny material on this side. The opposite side, there's none on the Loctite side. Hopefully you can see that. The Loctite side is undamaged. This side is not. So I don't know if that has something to do with it. Maybe the Loctite protected these sides. Maybe the material's still a little bit too soft, which is what I suspect it is. But I did torque these down to 15 inch-pounds of torque, which is the maximum I would ever use on these little 440 screws. Because again, these screws are thinner than traditional RMR cut slides are. So because of that, the torque spec is actually a little bit less. So I torqued these down 15 inch-pounds, then loosened them, and then tightened them down to 15 inch-pounds again. And I did that 5 times. Just to see if I could get the threads to shear off like I did on the other ones. But I didn't have that happen. Now, again, there's some wear there, which I don't like seeing, so I think they should still look at, the screws. Maybe there's a way to get a higher quality screw. Now, 15 inch-pounds for these type screws is a lot. I think most companies recommend somewhere between 12 and 15 inch-pounds for these specific screws. Again, it varies based on the company and the manufacturer, whatever, but I just went with the max value because I wanted to see if I could break them. And I just went with the 15 inch-pounds because I wanted to see if I could break these. Now, these screws are significantly longer, which I did suggest them doing, and they did do, so credit where credit is due. These are longer screws. I don't remember the exact length. I want to say they're either 8.5 millimeters, maybe something like that. I'll annotate it below what these are, but these are more than adequate lengthwise. So because, even if they are a softer material, which again I suspect, since you have full rotation, and I got 3.5 full rotations with these screws on that slide. So the amount of rotations you get in order to hold the optic on the slide is more than adequate. I didn't have a problem with that. That's actually the most I've seen on most screws sent to me by optics companies. So they listened to me, and I appreciate that. So you're able to get 3 full rotations, plus I think like a half, so it was like 3.5, and which is more than enough to hold this in place. And again, before, whenever I was using screws, they got, I think, about a 1.5 to 2 full rotation, somewhere around there. And they, again, were these other screws that weren't actually designed for it. It shifted about 3 inches left. So I'm going to insert some video footage of me doing this again, and I racked it against a wooden table to try to get it to lose 0, and I hit it against the, the 4x4 that's holding up the little roof that I was sitting under, and to try to get it to lose 0, and it did not lose 0. All right, and I should have kept recording. Sorry, I just hit the stop. It is holding 0. So other people on YouTube, they got maybe a bad unit or something. This is, again, that reticle literally covered up an area about this big. Not the dot. The dot was about the size of the 8, but that glare or reflection or whatever it is covered up an area about this big. So that was why my group is not super tight. Again, because I'm only at about maybe 10, maybe a little bit more than that yards. When I took my time, I would say that's acceptable. That's on average optics holding 0. That was just me sucking. So once I got a better position, that was a lot better, but it's holding 0 now. Now I'm going to aim, actually I'll aim at the 9 from here on out. I'm going to go rack it against the wood and see if that changes the point of impact. All right, so again, it held 0 just being on the optic. It doesn't appear to have come loose at all. The screws are still exactly where they were. So let's take it and all right, well, the finish on it, for what it's worth, is still fine. That wood did not mess it up. And in case you're wondering how hard I hit it, you can see it's, splinter. It's chipping up the wood right there. So is this, the biggest, best durability test ever? No, it's not. It's just me trying to test something. Now, if it doesn't lose 0 after doing that, then I would say at least my example is fine. That could have been me, but that was significantly left. don't know if those first few were me or if that was the optic. Let me put another sticker up there and just verify for sure, because it looks like it moved. I'm gonna reshoot. I actually put a green sticker up there. That'll give me a better aiming point that I can actually see, because those numbers, again, they're white. So that white reflection covers it up. So I can't be precise. So I don't know if that last group was just me sucking, or if it was just the gun or the reticle or what. All right. I jerked that last one slightly right. The one on the very right is me. All right, so based on the previous group, it doesn't look like it lost zero. This one was me. I can only assume that one was probably me as well. All right, so there is a nice group, and it's roughly, let's go with the majority of them. It's roughly an inch before my aiming point, and before, it's roughly an inch before my aiming point. This was way easier to see the target because I had contrast, versus here, that stupid reflection off the emitter glass or whatever it is that's, you know, being projected basically behind the dot itself just covers up everything. So you're capable of, you know, again, if you don't suck like me here, it's capable of holding zero. At least my example is, and that's a nice tight group. So if you have contrast, that, you know, reflection doesn't matter, but if you don't, then that's what you get. But it's holding zero after that 20, I think it was 20 hits on the wood. So I would say the screws that they include now are adequate, because before it shifted, you know, maybe to about over here. So new screws make a difference. So I'm gonna beat this against a piece of wood, hopefully. Let me see if you can see this. Yes, you can. All right, so let's just do this. All right, I don't know if that'll actually mess up anything or not. We'll see. It got some wood chunks in it. This is not the most scientific thing ever. Let's see if the flashlight still works. Yep, still does. All right. I'm going to aim at the green circle again, so my grouping shouldn't change. That one was not. Okay. Two of those are me. It's an awkward shooting position, but it's about as stable as I can get. Sorry. All right, so one of those, that one right there was me, and then that one was my first round. I jerked it. That one, I don't know, but the rest of them were all right there. So other than me sucking, the zero has not changed. Again, I'm at about 10 yards, maybe a little bit further than that. So for me, I'm happy with that. It hasn't lost zero, so I apparently did not get a lemon. I'm hopeful that Olight will resolve whatever the issue of that zero shift is on the other examples out there. But at least the screw issue has been resolved. Now, again, I still have the same complaints that I will mention in the video. The main one being that this, whenever the sun is shining back this way, there's actually, and you can't see it in the dark right now, but if you're in the sunlight, there's light that reflects off of this emitter glass in here, and then it reflects back right where the red dot is, and it's like a white circle behind the red dots, and it kind of obscures your target if you're trying to be precise. So that was annoying, but the screw issue seems to have been resolved. Again, I'll let the results speak for themselves. It did not lose zero with these screws. So if you have a RMR style cut slide like this one, that is a Zev style cut slide, with this one's made by Brownells, you don't have to worry about that being an issue anymore, because these screws getting 3 full rotations hold this down with plenty of force to where it's not gonna, you know, ever so slightly shift one way or another. So kudos to Olight for fixing this issue. Are there still other improvements I would like to see made on this? Yes. I would like for them either to just omit the light sensor on the front, or improve it to where it's actually usable in all lighting conditions. Because again, in pure sunlight, my example got way too bright to where, I mean, I could aim with it, but trying to be precise was impossible. And then whenever you're using it with something like this very high candela light, this also made by Olight, it washes out the dot and it can't get bright enough. So I always leave it on the manual settings. So again, other than that, which is my real main complaint, which you can ignore by just using the manual settings, they resolved at least my main concern. Now that said, I still think they have some QC issues to work out because again, a lot of the reviews I've seen online, these lose zero. Could that have just been, you know, the guy who worked on the detents that day was having a bad day or was mad, or it could have been. I have no idea. But based on this, if you get an example that doesn't have that problem, everything else again seems to work fine. So I just wanted to give you an update. There's a lot of drama about this online, and some of y'all will call me shills for this. I don't really care. I just want to see products be improved by the company, and that way y'all get a good product for your money, and it gives other businesses out there competition to, you know, make them improve their product. So kudos again to Olight for sending me out these screws to test out and verify that this is a good fix, and they're going to be shipping all the new optics with those specific screws. So if you have an RMR cut slide and you order one from this point on, you should be good to go. Anyways, I appreciate y'all watching and hope you all have a good one.